Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Racket Athlete Podcast, Racket Sports Performance. And today, with Chris Nicol and Danielle Ray. Welcome to the show, Danielle. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
No problem. It's great to have you on.
Sorry?
It's great to have you on today. Yeah, so it's been a nice day here. Afternoon. What time is it with you?
9:30 a.m.
Oh wow! So yeah, still a bit of the day left compared to me. It's now 2:30 in the afternoon, so it's halfway through. So let's start then by finding out about you. Who's Danielle? What does she do? What's her background? Obviously, we do know a bit about that, but let's go delving deeper into that now.
Hey, so yeah, I'm Danielle Ray. I was born in Calgary, Canada, but after kind of moving around during my squash career, I've settled down in Washington, D.C. area with my husband and daughter. Kind of started growing up and playing squash in Calgary, and then I went to Cornell University, played on the varsity team there before turning pro. I spent most of my time in Calgary and then moved to Egypt for a few years.
Oh, nice.
Moved to DC, and then kind of got plagued with some injuries, which had me kind of stop and start within, my competitive mode for a while. And in that time, I got a master's degree through Harvard Extension School, and then had my daughter, and started my comeback to squash, and then had another injury, and now I'm here.
Nice. So let's chat a bit about that background in squash then. How did it start for you? Obviously, you mentioned a little bit about it there. Let's go back a bit to childhood and how that was with squash and how you got into it, and let's bring it forward a bit as well.
Okay. So yeah, my parents played at our club in Calgary, the Glencoe club. And so they had actually met playing squash. My mom had played as a junior. My grandma had played as a junior. She was actually the first woman to get, she was the first person to get women into squash in the club.
Well, nice.
And really kind of kickstart that program. But yeah, then my dad happened to be on court messing around, and that's how they met. And then kind of put my brother and I into the squash program. And I think throughout my career in childhood, I saw my brother really excel with squash, and he got all these opportunities to travel. And then he eventually went to Princeton University and played on the team there. And so I think looking up to him kind of motivated me to really push and get into it.
Yeah, so that kind of gives you that inspiration, right, to start at least, and then obviously now where you are, obviously that's looking back, that's obviously where it all started. So a bit further forward, so let's say from the start of your professional career to your best ranking in Pro Tour. Let's go from there now.
Okay. So yeah, I had graduated from Cornell, and then I feel like I actually had a decent start. I was playing some 5Ks, 10Ks, getting into semis and finals, picking up my first title about a half a year in February. And from there, I feel like I was building and improving, and then I reached a point where I was ranked around maybe 35 to 40, where I'd had some one-off results, but not consistently getting to where I wanted to be. And then I had tried looking around to figure out where I could go for training. I was toying with the idea between England, maybe going up to Sheffield. So I did a few kind of stints testing out different places. So I tried Sheffield. I'd gone to Egypt a couple times just before events like the Egyptian Open or before Guna to get some extra training. And I think because of just cost and cost of living, that's initially how I was turning my focus towards Egypt. And then I did a stint. I think I did a stint there for about 2 months, came back, and then that's when I really had some breakthrough performances. I did well at the TOC. I did well at the pyramids, and then I won a 10K, and then I won two 20Ks back to back in Canada. So that was in March of 2020, though. So I actually was in the last tournament that was played in Regina. So I claimed these two titles, and then it was COVID. And I spent obviously the first couple months just training outside. I had a good group of friends where we do outdoor workouts. Because I found it tough when you had all this momentum in the career. I'd broken into the top 20 at that point, and then it kind of stopped, and you don't know when it's going to get back going. So that was really nice for me, because it was a way to kind of stay active without that pressure that you necessarily feel throughout your whole career. But then Egypt had opened up. Canada was very shut down in terms of court access.
Yeah.
And so I know it was a bit of a risk, and at the time, with kind of the mindset around travel, probably, not the most kosher idea I've ever had. But I moved there in, I think, June or July, and spent, but I was moving there. Found a coach to work with, and then I stayed there for about 2 years. And in that period, it worked well, because all of the tournaments were in Egypt. They're pretty much in Cairo, with one in Guna. I had a ton of people to train with, and it really helped me become a tougher competitor, tougher mentally for a while. I think it's a very high-paced, stressful environment to live and train in. And so the first while, I think I was doing well, kept pushing top 20, having good results, but then I started crashing out. I wasn't happy living there. I was definitely in a weird spiral. I'd get up to 11 matches, get panic attacks, kind of consistently. And then injuries started sneaking in, and it was time to leave. And that's when I moved to the States. Initially moved to Philadelphia, trained there for a few months. But then at Canadian Nationals in 2022, I blew out my right knee in the semifinals. And then from there, it was just very in and out.
Yeah. So let's go a couple steps back when you mentioned the in Egypt and you kind of hit a crash point. Do you think that was to do with your recovery phases within the game and your mentality recovery, or do you think it was just to do with the altitude, the heat, the different environment you were in?
I think it was just the lifestyle, to be honest. I felt very lonely there, a little isolated. The routine was wake up, eat, drive probably 30 minutes minimum to training, go from squash or straight to fitness, go to fitness, home, eat, sleep, drive an hour to play a practice match, play the practice match, drive an hour back, go to eat. And I just felt like it was hard to make any friends or connections outside that, even if you tried. I was luckily living in an area with a few expats. But even then, it was just, I think it's a tough culture to integrate into. I think coming away from it now, I can look back and I obviously have friends within squash who are Egyptian, and I'd say those friendships are better now than when I was there. I'd say while I was there, it's so much pressure in the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And there's no life balance. And I've kind of come away with the thought that if you're not happy off court, you're not going to be happy on court. Yeah. And I think I was like, oh, it's worth it because I'm going to get there and I'm improving my squash. But at a certain point, you realize like,
it's also
if you're not enjoying it, sorry?
It's also breaking you down as well, right?
It is, yeah.
On the flip side.
Yeah. It's like, well, if I have nothing else in my life except squash, then you put all this pressure on squash. It's like, this is the only good thing going for me. And that's how it felt at the time.
Yeah.
And then you get it. It did take a lot of the joy out of competing for a while.
Yeah. So let's chat a bit about those injuries you mentioned, and let's go deeper into them if you can. And you spoke to me briefly about it before, but let's chat a bit about that now.
Sorry, about what?
Your injuries that you had to navigate through
injuries.
your career of squash. How did you navigate your injuries basically, and how did you cope with them, or make changes, recovery, etc.?
So the first one, I had surgery pretty much immediately after I blew out my knee. So I tore my ACL, MCL, meniscus, and we went and had surgery a couple days after in Vancouver, which in hindsight was a big mistake. The surgery failed, which I didn't realize until about 9 months later, when I didn't re-tear it, but it just didn't take. I went and got an MRI and it's just not there. So I had been doing PT in DC, building up strength. And it was actually a kind of nice mental reset because I was in such a dark place with my squash. It's like, okay, I actually can take a break, reset, and then get back into it. Obviously, having the ACL not take was a bit of a downer, and reset. You're constantly dealing with some extra pain. So I redid my surgery. Started making progress again. I actually felt like I had a really good support system in terms of recovery. I had constant contact with my surgeon. I had a physical therapist who I still see now, obviously, again, who works with like Francis Tiafo and a bunch of the Washington Capitals players, Wizards players. So I felt like they had a very good plan in terms of recovery, which was different than my first one. And then I just kind of got unlucky. I had a loose screw in my knee. So I had an ALL attachment just because I'm hypermobile. So what they do is they provide this extra cadaver to limit that range of motion and add extra support. But then when the screws came loose and it was like poking out of my knee. And so I was playing through that and I was in quite a bit of pain, but I was just going to try and wait to get to the end of the season before going and having the quick cleanup surgery. But then I got pregnant. So I had to wait a little bit longer to do that. And in the meantime, I was five months pregnant. I went and played with a loose screw in my knee, and I went and played the Pan Am Champs representing Canada down in Peru, and managed to pick up a silver medal there, which I was pretty shocked by. I think at that point, compared to my traditional style of play, I was just going for winners and shots, playing untraditional rallies. I remember playing Megan Best in, I think, the quarters. And she's someone who I think when there's a predictable pattern, she picks up on it very quickly. And so I think I was up 2-1. It was the fourth game. I was like, oh, maybe I'll try and play more traditional squash, build the rallies, all that. And then she just completely ate me apart. So in the fifth game, I was hitting like skid bows, reverse bows, drops from everywhere. And so I actually think that was one of the most fun matches I've played because there were just no rules. So anyways, I ended up having surgery later on when I was allowed to with my pregnancy, had my daughter in January 2023.
Okay.
And then I was in a weird phase about would I come back or not. And then squash got into the Olympics. So you're like, I managed to do this really cool thing while I was pregnant. And I know I have the skill. I feel like I've evolved my game from what it was even when I was top 20. I was very physical when I was top 20. I think at that point, I'd kind of gone away from my traditional style of play, was more hard pace hitting, maybe a little less thinking. And so I feel like in that all of these years, I actually became a better squash player in terms of style, my technique, my consistency. And then it was just my body was kind of failing me. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take this chance. We'll play some tournaments, see where I'm at and feel it out. And I actually felt by March this year, my body had recovered. I was going about my training in a very thoughtful way, making sure I was getting strong enough cardio-wise, not overloading myself. And I think after, years of being plagued with injuries, I finally felt like myself for the first time. And then one fluke movement in St. Louis, and that was it. That was it for me. So I reached my limit.
Yeah. One question from what you just said, do you think all that adversity you've had made you into a different squash player mentally and physically? Or just mentally?
Yeah, I'd say it forced me to be a different player physically. I was I was really fast before, almost inefficient with my movement, because I was so fast that I'd get too close to the ball. So I think the fact I was slower actually improved my movement, and I had to be efficient. I would have liked for some more of the speed to come back, but it is what it is. But definitely mentally, I started enjoying squash again. I had fun competing. I think the first couple times when I came back, I felt like I had something to prove, and I think I was a little angry about the circumstances. But by the end, and these last few months, I could play freely. New perspective. Obviously, I think I know I was at the end of my career, regardless if I could push to qualification of Olympics or further, or if it was just going to be it. So I think you can go about it in a relaxed way. I have other things going for me in my life. I have my family. And so I was able to kind of problem solve better because I was relaxed on court. So just a clearer head, my body was more relaxed. So things kind of naturally flow better. My shots were going in a bit more, style changed.
Yeah. So just to recap on that, I think as that happened to you through those adversities, you become a different person as well as a different squash player, right? That's kind of how to sum it up, I suppose. So let's move on to something about strength conditioning for squash. So within your career, obviously, there's always updates, there's always new stuff, how did you train strength conditioning for squash in your career? How many coaches did you work with? 1, 2, or was it always the same coach you had for that?
So I had been working with my personal trainer, Richard Gibney, from the age I was 14 up until 28 when I was in Egypt. And leaving him, I think, is one of my biggest regrets. The reason I did it was just to have someone in person because I was in Egypt. That was literally the only reason. I had trained and done his programs throughout university, and he really built me up. And I was injury-free the whole time I was with him. He just has a very calm demeanor. He's very researched, adding strength, conditioning, plyometrics, agility. I think he looks at it holistically. He used to be a badminton player, and a good one in his own right. So I loved working with Richard. And then I worked with a coach in Egypt, Dabo. He used to train Ramy Ashour, I think, for a season, or maybe the season when he was just cleaning up on the tour and winning everything. He's more focused on track, and he crushed me I was very, very fit. I think his workouts compared to Richard's were very balanced, like where you worked hard, and I obviously get tired, but I think Dabo's just killed me every single time. And then right before tournament, I'd be like, please take it easy on me. Like I need to be fresh, and he would. So I was very fit, but I'm not sure if that kind of put too much strain on my body, which might have led to the injuries that came soon after. And since then, I've kind of been working. I've worked with Bridget, who was until recently at US Squash. She now has her own her own setup in Philadelphia. She's amazing. She reminds me of Richard in terms of her approach to squash and to training. Very, very research. She likes testing, having data to kind of show you that you're improving, you're going in the right direction. In terms of injury, it was great because okay, where's my quad strength on my right side compared to my left? Is there a higher risk of injury, re-injury and stuff like that? So
yeah,
that was very helpful. She's great. She's definitely very high energy. If you're having a bad day, she'll lift you up, kind of get you through it. And then also been working with Lance Kelly at MedStar, and he's been more my rehab, physical therapy side, strength training. So yeah, that's kind of how it's evolved right now. I'm mainly just working with Lance, trying to walk,
rehab,
basics.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you've had a mixture of coaches through your time for S&C with different methodologies which have worked in different ways, right?
Yeah.
So let's move on to your nutrition. So this will be interesting as well. So nutrition development within squash in your career. Again, what methodologies have you come across? What coaches have you worked with, and how have you found it?
I think I've been pretty fortunate. I've never really had to be super strict with my nutrition. I generally would eat healthy. I have my pre-match meals. If it's breakfast, I'll have like eggs, toast, avocado, something simple. Lunch, rice, meat, sushi, veg, all of that. But I kind of allowed myself to, if I wanted to have a drink, I could have a drink. If I wanted to have ice cream, I could. Because I was so active, it didn't really matter. At this point in my career, it's a bit of a rude awakening, especially after being pregnant and not being quite as strict as maybe I should have been.
Happens.
So I think now I'm putting a bit more thought into my nutrition. But it's not like I've ever been unhealthy. I've just been, how can I fuel? And now I'm in a different mindset of like, how do I not get fat? So so you've had like the different perspectives on what you've needed nutrition for and how you've used it, basically, right? Yeah, different purposes.
For the purpose, yeah, exactly, right. So squash a bit different. It's more about fueling energy and in recovery as well. And obviously in general life, as you're finishing your career, it's a different methodology you're into now as well. So more like health-based sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's kind of tough though, because you're like, oh, I'm done squash. I don't necessarily have to be as on top of it. I don't have to be as strict because I'm not trying to perform.
Yeah.
Oh.
You've still got to. I think it's definitely a mindset, nutrition as well, right? So as well as putting the food in the mouth, it's in here that it's the nutrition as well, right? So let's chat about not the sport anymore. Let's chat about, because I obviously, when I coach my rapid sports performance to players, I do personally believe they should be personally developing as well, not just within their sport. So how did you develop personally as well as in the sport? Not in the sport, but how did you develop yourself?
I think throughout my career, I always tried to have another focus. With the one time when I didn't was when I was in Egypt. But when I was in Calgary, I always had something I was studying for, trying to learn. And then when I got injured, I pretty much right away signed up for the master's program. Fortunately got into it and completed that in 2 years. So I think that was the best way for me to stay balanced, keep my mind going. I loved learning at university. I like to kind of see what's out there. And I've always been aware of, retirement would come at a certain point. And so trying to figure out how can I set myself up for when I'm done, what interests me. And it's tough because I think as you get into the workforce and find other things, you find things that do interest you. But when you're not in it, you're kind of looking at it from a very abstract point of view and trying to find things to look into. So I did try and grow in that way. And then in terms of off-court squash, like I do enjoy coaching. I like watching squash. I like being involved in other aspects. So I think just talking with other people, learning from their experiences, trying to get feedback, and then just a lot of self-reflection as you go through the process, which I think the more aware you can be and monitoring your own behaviors, it really goes a long way.
Yeah. It's a lot to do with habits as well, right? Obviously, when you're developing yourself, it's different to developing your sport because you're developing other areas that you have interest in or you want to develop for yourself. So it's a different mindset again. So you've obviously had through your squash career, both of those mindsets like there, and you're obviously just dropping in and out of each one when it's necessary.
Yeah, and just kind of changing the balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then personally, I think obviously I've had to do a lot of changing and growth having our daughter. Definitely shocks your whole life and way of being. And learning more about yourself in that process. That's been probably the biggest thing that's changed me.
Yeah, I can understand that. I have kids myself, so I understand exactly what you're talking about. You become a different person. You have to think differently, be differently, act differently. It's a whole different ballgame, as you say. So let's talk a little bit about, did you have a sports psychologist in your squash career? And how did that work if you did? And how was it for you?
I did. I'd say I probably should have utilized him more than I did. So his name is Dave Paskovich. He is a professor at the University of Calgary, works with a bunch of, he's had a bunch of Olympians, gold medalists. And I was fortunate enough, I think he understands that as professional athletes, you don't make a ton. So I kind of have monthly meetings with him, but most of it was online because you're traveling all the time. And so he kind of gave me a format of things to go over and think about before and after each match, how to address outside thoughts that are going to negatively impact you. And so I used him, I'd say for a few years.
Right.
And I wish I had used him more than I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would that be your top tip for any aspiring athletes in squash right now? Would you say that's one thing, if they have that option, use it more?
Yeah, I'd say use it more. Obviously, it's about finding the right person who works for you. And I really liked his methodology because it was very matter of fact, focusing on no judgment towards yourself. You're allowed to feel what you're feeling. And that is a good reminder for me. I've always been my worst enemy in terms of criticism. And I always found it helped when you get that reminder. And for me, I always kept a journal that I would do daily, and it's like practicing gratitude, going about your day in a very purposeful way before matches and then after matches, taking notes. And I always had my best performances when I was doing that. I'd go on month stretches and then kind of fall off. So yeah, I think it's either finding someone that works for you or finding practices that work for you and sticking with them.
Yeah. Just a quick one, actually. You've just reminded me of a question I was wanting to ask. Did you have a pre-match routine you stuck to religiously every time before a game?
Yeah, not to a point where, not like Nadal level style, but I do have a routine, in terms of when I eat. It depends, obviously, if you have a noon match, the routine shifts a little different compared to a 5 p.m. match. But for each of those time frames, I had a routine to be like, if I had a later match, wake up, eat, have my morning practice, eat, nap, make sure my rackets are gripped, do my foam rolling, stretching, some some mental prep, and then I veg out for a while. I don't want to kind of
you need to
waste all my energy early. Yeah.
Like that's a big thing as an athlete, because like, or a sports person in general, right? Because you have all this drive all the time, but actually, if you want to keep that drive, you need to rest as well, right?
Yeah. It's funny because I think now if I put on TV, I like having something a bit more interesting. But at the time, it's like, what is the dumbest thing I can possibly watch? That's probably what I'm watching on game day.
Just let the brain like relax completely and not have to think too much before a big match. And then I actually agree with that, because I find I play squash myself, but I find that when I play it more relaxed and focused, I play better, play much better.
100.
When you're like trying to be too aggressive before a match or too hyped, to think it has the opposite effect. Your game just one mistake and you're like, oh, and then when you're relaxed and focused, I find that you just brush off a mistake and go right next point next.
Yeah.
And it's that different mindset, right? It's recovery is key. That's one thing I want to state here, is recovery is key, because I think a lot of athletes, but not all, but some may go through like just drive all the time and focused on go. Whereas the more as you get through your career, you understand more recovery is probably more important, to be fair.
Yeah.
If you want to keep that, that high level, you need to have that recovery is there as well. Definitely.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, actually, I was thinking you'd be shocked by my warm-up music. It's either I don't have music on, but if I'm in a loud place where there's a lot of energy, I'll listen to something that's
chilled.
Yeah, not to the point where I'm like going to fall asleep, but nothing that's going to pump me up anymore. But I think it's one of those things, like, you learn about yourself. It's like, okay, are you someone who's like up here and needs to like come down? Or are you someone here who's like, I need to like,
You do, as you develop in a sport or anything, like that, you understand yourself more, which is great, because it gives you that slight edge that people obviously don't know about you until they're playing you on the court, right?
Yeah.
And they've not seen it. So what's next for you then, Danielle? What you squash, obviously you've had your squash career now, and what is next for you? What is it you're going to do?
So I started a position about a month ago. I think I started maybe a week after surgery, doing technical recruiting at Expression. So I've been doing that, enjoying it so far. I'm doing that part-time. And then the other time, spending it with my daughter. I think once, or doing my physical therapy. So that's the routine right now. In terms of long-term, obviously want to have more kids down the line. And then, see what I can do within recruiting, see where it takes me. I do like having some other purpose. And then I would like to get involved with squash again in some capacity. I'm just not sure what that is yet.
Yeah, awesome. And if anyone wants to contact you about squash, about your career, any questions, where's the best place to get you?
Probably LinkedIn, possibly Instagram. Yeah.
Nice. So I can possibly post up those links on the release of this, and then if people want to contact you, they'll get you on Instagram or LinkedIn.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome. So it's been great to have you on today, Danielle. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. Hopefully I didn't chat your ear off too much, but I appreciate the time.
No, I appreciate you coming on. That is another episode of the Racket Athlete Podcast, Racket Sports Performance, and with Chris Nicol and Danielle Ray, and we'll speak to you soon.